I like to hear different points of view because that's how I learn. Right? I always, my dad taught us this from when we were really, really young, right? You're better seen, not heard, right? And so when I walk into a room of people, I'm always looking to listen, right? Listening and learning. So I'm listening and listening and listening, and then when it's my turn to add value, I'm trying to add as much value as I possibly can, right? But listening to a conversation, understanding what's going on in the conversation allows you to be able to provide value to said conversation. If you're just talking, you're the loudest guy in the room, right? You never learn anything.
Can you tell me a story about your dad?
Honestly, my dad is probably one of the smartest guys I have ever met, right? He's one of the guys that, growing up, I could know exactly how he was feeling or what he was thinking by the way he would look at me, right? And that was always one of the things, and that's one of the ways that I'm with my kids now. There's so many things that I got from my dad that, looking back now, it's been a blessing to me, right? Because he was extremely strict. I've told tons of people this, our mannerisms at the table, right? The way that we conduct ourselves, the way that you look at people, the way you shake somebody's hand will all tell things about who you are and how you were raised, right? And, I can tell a lot about how somebody shakes my hand, right? Of what kind of person they're gonna be, especially in business, right? I can see, when I'm walking with somebody and I'm walking in a door, right? Are people holding doors for women, right? Do people give up their seat to the elderly and to the women, right? And that was something that my dad would always watch. If we walked into a room, if I was sitting down, right, and a woman walked in and there wasn't a seat for her, and if I didn't get up, I better pray that he doesn't see me later, right? Yeah. Because that's just absolutely rude, right? And we always had a rule. If you wanted to sit in the front seat, right, you had to either be older or had to be able to throw whoever wanted to sit in the front seat out, right? It was a physical challenge. So if you were feeling froggy and you wanted to throw your older brother out of the front seat, by all means, try it. But if you didn't, the respect was, respect your elders. Like, if he's older than you, he's gonna sit in the front seat. There was no, I call front seat or any of that stuff. It was 100% like, you better be stronger or you better be older.
Wow.
Whatever one works. And that's just life, right? And those are the things that we learned from a very young age, is like, life is brutal, right? I lost my mom at a very young age, and life is brutal. It doesn't wait for anybody, and the clock never stops. So if you want to progress in life, you better be really, really strong, or you better be very resilient. And those are things that my dad taught me, and that's why I say he's probably one of the smartest guys that I've ever met, right? And did we always get along? No. But, I have the utmost respect for my dad, and I see so many things happening in the world with young teenagers and the way they treat their parents and stuff like that. And it's like, if I dreamed about treating my dad some of the way I've seen people treat him, I'd wake up and apologize. Okay, that's how much respect I have for my dad. So it's one of those things that's, it's different the way I was raised. I think a lot of parents want to be friends with their kids first, parents to their kids second. And I think that's what's wrong with the world nowadays, right? Did I always like my dad? No. But I always respected my dad. And that's a true thing, right? And yeah, I was, fear will do a lot of things. And was I scared of my dad? No. I respected my dad because I knew if my dad said something, right, and I did not listen, there was consequences, right? He told me a long time ago, you can choose your choices, but you can't choose your consequences, right? So everybody's got everybody's got a choice in life, and you can choose whatever you want to do, but the outcome of that said choice is not guaranteed, right?
It's beautiful.
Can't choose your consequences, so choose wisely.
You have chosen wisely.
And that was one of the things, like, I didn't always like my dad. I always loved my dad, but I didn't always like him. But I 100%, all the time, 365 days a year, I respected him. And that was a given, because he demanded respect.
Do all of your brothers feel the same way?
100%. And my dad has 14 kids. There's 9 boys in my family. And every single boy in my family is a high producing individual. right? And it comes from one thing and one thing only, is that, you know, we were taught respect. We were taught to work hard. We were taught that nothing is free in life, and we were taught respect, right? And respect is a two-way street, okay? You can't get respect until you give respect, right? And that was one thing that a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people walk around, their chest puffed out, and they're demanding respect, but they don't give respect, right? My dad was always the kind of guy that gave respect, but he demanded respect in return, okay? And that was one of the things, like, he wouldn't have us get out of our chair for a woman when he wasn't the one that was first always doing that, right? We always watched. You know, kids are like computers. Whatever you program them to learn, they will learn. You program them to be disrespectful, you program them by your actions, right? Because kids are very visual. You program them to be disrespectful, you program them to be rude and loud and ignorant, they will be whatever you program them to be. But if you program them to be respectful, you program them to be hardworking, you program them to do things right, and life has turns, and I'm not saying that every parent that's had a children go wayward, it was their fault, you know, because there's still choices in life. But majority of the time, it'll happen, you know? And that's what happened in my family, and my dad's kids, you know? It's like every boy that he has is a high producing individual, right? Every one of the girls are very high producing individuals in their families as well. And it's like, you know, people would always ask my dad, like, what do you do special? What's so special about what you do, you know? And he would just say, you know, I require a lot. But as the saying goes, to he who is given much, much is required, right? And from my dad's point of view, he was given 14 kids, and so he was required a lot to teach those 14 kids.
Do you think you could talk a little bit about how all of that culture that he brought to you transcends into how you run your company?
One of the greatest things that I ever learned from my family dynamic that translated into my business is the entire portion, right, of raising kids, right, is being a leader, right, is when it translates in business, it's the same exact thing. It's like, if you don't give respect to your employees, how are they going to respect you, right? If you don't show your employees, and that's one thing that I am extremely, I'm very big on, right? I will never ask somebody in my business to do something that I'm not willing to do myself, right? If I'm asking them, if I'm telling them, hey, you need to go up in the attic and you need to get into that insulation, you need to do that, right? And I'm not willing to do that myself, and they know that, it's going to be bad. Right? They'll never truly be like, yeah, well, you know, Ben would never do that, so, you know, why do I have to do it? It's like, no, they know Ben would do it, right? And that's always been one of the things with me too, is like, if I am gonna do it, I'm gonna do it 100%, and that's what I teach all my guys, right? Because our customers deserve 110% out of us every single day. That's why we train as hard as we train. That's why we do the things that we do, because they ultimately deserve the best of us. And if we're not self-developing every day, if we're not training every single day to make sure that everything in their home is taken care of, you know, we're failing.